The Velkari had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. Their empire stretched across 1,000 worlds. They had crushed every enemy that ever stood against them. To them, other species were nothing more than insects waiting to be stepped on. When humanity first reached the stars 200 years ago, the Velkari watched with amusement. These small creatures from a tiny blue planet were spreading slowly across the galaxy. They built colonies. They made friends with other species. They talked about peace and cooperation. The Velkari found this funny. For many years, they ignored humanity. Humans were too weak to matter, too small to notice. But then human colonies began to grow near Velkari space. The High Council of the Velkari Dominion decided it was time to teach these creatures a lesson the whole galaxy would see. They chose the planet called New Harmony. New Harmony was a beautiful world. Green fields stretched for thousands of miles. Rivers of clean water flowed through valleys. 10 million humans lived there. Most of them were farmers. They grew food for other human colonies. They lived simple lives. They raised their children under open skies. On the morning the Velkari came, a little girl named Sarah was helping her father in the wheat fields. She was 7 years old. She had drawn a picture that morning of her family standing under a yellow sun. Her mother had put it on the wall of their kitchen. Sarah never saw the ships at first. Nobody did. The Velkari fleet came out of faster-than-light travel directly above the planet. 200 warships blocked out the sun. Then the broadcast began. The Velkari did not just want to destroy New Harmony. They wanted everyone to watch. They sent their signal to every corner of known space, every space station, every planet, every ship. Billions of beings across the galaxy saw what happened next. The Velkari commander appeared on screens everywhere. He was tall, with gray skin and 4 arms. His eyes were black and cold, like the space between stars. He smiled as he spoke. "Today we teach the humans their place," he said. "Watch carefully. Learn. This is what happens to species that forget they are prey." The first bombs fell on the cities. Massive explosions turned buildings into dust. Millions died in seconds. But the Velkari were not satisfied with quick death. They wanted to hunt. Drop ships landed across the planet. Velkari soldiers poured out with weapons in their hands. They chased humans through the streets. They hunted them through the fields. They found them hiding in basements and shelters. The cameras followed everything. The soldiers laughed as they killed. They made jokes. They competed to see who could kill the most. All of it was shown live to the galaxy. In the wheat fields outside the city, Sarah ran with her father. He carried her in his arms as fast as he could. Behind them, Velkari soldiers walked slowly. They were not in a hurry. They knew there was nowhere to run. Sarah's father found a small hole in the ground. He put her inside and covered her with dirt and wheat stalks. "Stay quiet," he whispered. "Stay very quiet. I love you." Then he ran in the other direction, drawing the soldiers away from his daughter. Sarah stayed in that hole for 6 hours. She heard screams. She heard laughter. She heard sounds that would never leave her memory. The broadcast lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 10 million humans were dead. Every city was destroyed. Every farm was burned. The Velkari commander appeared on screen one last time. "Let this serve as instruction," he said. "Humanity will accept its boundaries, or humanity will accept extinction. We have been merciful today. We have only killed 10 million. Remember this mercy when you think about challenging us again." Then the Velkari fleet left. They returned to their space as if nothing important had happened. On Earth, people watched in silence. In homes and offices, in schools and hospitals, humans stared at screens with tears running down their faces. They had seen everything. They had watched their brothers and sisters die while aliens laughed. In the United Terran Parliament, the leaders of humanity gathered. Nobody spoke for a long time. What words could match what they had witnessed? Admiral Helena Vance stood near the front of the chamber. She was 60 years old. She had served in the fleet for 40 years. She had seen battles and death, but she had never seen anything like this. The President of Earth looked at her. "Admiral, what do we do?" Vance did not answer immediately. She looked at the screen that still showed the burning remains of New Harmony. She thought about the 10 million dead. She thought about the soldiers who had laughed. She thought about the commander who had called it mercy. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet but steady. "They wanted us to watch," she said. They wanted us to be afraid. They wanted us to remember this day forever. She turned to face the assembly. Her eyes were dry. Her face showed no emotion. But something burned behind those eyes. Something cold and patient and absolutely certain. "We will remember," she said. "Every face, every name, every laugh from those soldiers. We will remember it all." A young senator stood up. "But what can we do? They have 1,000 worlds. They have ruled for 12,000 years. We have barely left our own solar system. How can we fight them?" Admiral Vance looked at him for a long moment. "We are humans," she said simply. "We are the species that learned to make fire when we were cold. We are the species that built ships when the ocean seemed impossible to cross. We are the species that reached for the moon when everyone said it could not be done." She walked toward the center of the chamber. "The Velkari think they have broken us. They think we will hide in our corner of space and tremble at their name. They think we are like the other species they have crushed. They are wrong." She stopped and looked at each leader in turn. "We will not attack tomorrow. We will not attack next month. We will be silent. We will let them think they have won. And while they celebrate, we will build. We will learn. We will become something they cannot imagine." "How long?" the president asked. "As long as it takes," Vance replied. "Years if necessary. But when we are ready, when we return to the stars, it will not be as victims. It will not be as prey." Her voice dropped to almost a whisper, but everyone heard her clearly. "It will be as the last thing the Velkari ever see." The chamber was silent. Then slowly, every person stood, not in applause, not in cheering. They stood in something deeper than that. They stood in a promise. Far away in the ruins of New Harmony, a little girl climbed out of a hole in the ground. Sarah walked through the ashes of her world, still clutching the memory of her father's last words. She did not cry. She was beyond tears. She looked up at the stars where the Velkari had gone. And though she was only 7 years old, she made a promise of her own. Humanity would remember. The galaxy waited for humanity to respond. Every species expected the humans to do something foolish. They expected angry attacks. They expected desperate strikes against Velkari outposts. They expected the rage of a wounded animal. But nothing happened. Days passed after the massacre at New Harmony. Human ships pulled back from the borders. Human ambassadors stopped attending meetings. Human colonies went quiet. The communication channels that once buzzed with human voices fell silent. The Velkari High Council watched this with satisfaction. Their plan had worked perfectly. The humans were broken. The lesson had been learned. Other species saw this and understood the message clearly. Do not challenge the Velkari. Do not expand into their territory. Do not dream of equality. Months passed. The galaxy moved on. The massacre at New Harmony became old news. Other things demanded attention. Wars between minor species, trade agreements, political games. The universe kept spinning, and the death of 10 million humans became just another historical event. The Velkari celebrated their victory. The commander who had led the attack received medals and honors. He wrote a book about his experience. He called it Teaching the Animals. It became popular among Velkari citizens. But behind the silence, something was happening on Earth. In secret facilities, deep underground, scientists worked around the clock. They did not sleep. They barely ate. They had one mission and one mission only: build weapons that could hurt the Velkari. Admiral Helena Vance oversaw everything from Lunar Command, a massive base hidden inside the moon. She received reports every hour: progress on new ship designs, advances in weapons technology, training programs for soldiers. Everything moved toward a single goal. The Helios program received the most attention. Before the massacre, it had been a small research project. Scientists had wondered if they could use the power of stars as a source of energy for colonies. Now they wondered something else. Could they use that power as a weapon? Dr. James Chen led the Helios team. He was a quiet man who had studied stars his entire life. He had never thought about weapons before. But his daughter had lived on New Harmony. Now he thought about weapons every single day. "It can be done," he told Admiral Vance during one of their meetings. "We can build satellites that focus solar energy. We can direct that energy wherever we want. The power would be beyond anything ever created." Vance looked at the plans on the screen. How much damage could it do? Dr. Chen was quiet for a moment. If we position enough satellites around a star, we could destabilize it. We could make it pulse with radiation. Everything in that star system would die. Everything. Everything. Vance nodded slowly. Continue your work. Across Earth and its colonies, factories produced ships at an incredible rate. These were not exploration vessels. They were not cargo carriers. They were weapons of war. Dark, angular ships with thick armor and powerful guns. Ships built for one purpose only. The first new warship was named Remembrance. It was 3 kilometers long. Its hull was covered with names. 10 million names. Every person who had died on New Harmony. Young people lined up to join the military. They did not have to be forced. They volunteered. The memory of what they had watched burned in their hearts. Mothers who had lost children. Children who had lost parents. Friends who had lost friends. They all wanted to serve. Sarah was among them. She was 10 years old now. 3 years had passed since she had hidden in that hole while her father drew the soldiers away. 3 years since she had walked through the ashes. She was too young to join the military, but she found other ways to help. She worked in a factory that built ship components. Her small hands were good for delicate work. She worked 12 hours a day without complaint. When people asked why she pushed herself so hard, she did not answer. She just kept working. Admiral Vance visited the factory once. She walked through the lines of workers, thanking them for their service. When she reached Sarah, she stopped. "You were on New Harmony," Vance said. It was not a question. Sarah looked up at the Admiral. "Yes, I am sorry for what happened to you." Sarah's eyes were steady. There was no fear in them. There was no sadness. There was only something hard and cold and patient. "Don't be sorry," Sarah said. "Be ready." Vance looked at this child who had grown up too fast. She saw herself in those eyes. She saw the future in those eyes. "We will be," she promised. 3 years passed. The galaxy continued to ignore humanity. The Velkari grew comfortable in their victory. They expanded their empire further. They crushed other species who opposed them. They believed themselves invincible. But reports began to reach them. Strange reports. Human ships had been spotted near the borders. Not many, just a few. They appeared and then vanished before anyone could react. Velkari commanders dismissed these reports. Human ships were not a threat. Human technology was decades behind their own. They did not know that these were scout ships. They did not know that humans were mapping their defenses. They did not know that everything they said on their communication channels was being recorded and translated. They did not know that humanity was ready. In Lunar Command, Admiral Vance gathered her fleet commanders for a final meeting. On the wall behind her, a screen showed the current state of human military power. 400 warships, 2,000 support vessels, 10 million trained soldiers. The Helios array was complete and ready. 3 years ago, the Velkari taught us a lesson, Vance said. They taught us that the universe does not care about peace. They taught us that kindness is seen as weakness. They taught us that only the strong survive. She looked at each commander in turn. These were men and women who had dedicated their lives to this moment. They had sacrificed everything. "We have learned their lesson well," she continued. "We have become strong. We have become ready. Now it is time to teach them a lesson of our own." A commander raised his hand. "What are our orders, Admiral?" Vance walked to the screen and pulled up a star map. The Velkari border was highlighted in red. Beyond it lay their territory, 1,000 worlds. 18 billion Velkari on their homeworld alone. "We do not want territory," Vance said. "We do not want resources. We do not want slaves or tribute. We want one thing only." She pressed a button, and the display changed to show the Velkari homeworld. "We want them to understand what they created. We want them to see the fire they lit when they touched our people, and we want to make sure they can never do this to anyone again." The commanders were silent. They understood what she was saying. This was not a war for land. This was not a war for power. This was something else entirely. "Are we ready to do what must be done?" Vance asked. "Are we ready to carry this weight for the rest of our lives?" One by one, the commanders nodded. Their faces were grim, their hearts were heavy, but their resolve was absolute. "Then send the signal," Vance ordered. "The silence is over." Across human space, ships began to move. Engines that had waited 3 years roared to life. Soldiers who had trained for this moment boarded their vessels. The time for preparation was finished. The time for remembrance had begun. Commander Vorath stood on the bridge of Sentinel Station 7, bored out of his mind. He had been stationed at this border outpost for 2 years. Nothing ever happened here. Human space lay beyond the boundary, and everyone knew humans were too afraid to cause trouble. He spent most of his days reading reports about nothing. Ships passing through, cargo inspections, minor disputes between traders. It was the most boring assignment in the entire Velkari fleet. That changed in one moment. The alarm system screamed to life. Vorath jumped from his chair and rushed to the sensor display. What he saw made his blood turn cold. Energy signatures were appearing from faster-than-light travel. 1, 10, 50, 100. They kept coming. More and more signatures filled the display until the system could barely count them all. "What is this?" Vorath demanded. "Where are they coming from?" His sensor officer looked at the readings with wide eyes. "Human space, Commander. They're coming from human space." "That's impossible. The humans don't have this many ships." But the evidence was right in front of him. 400 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They moved together like a single living creature. At the center of the formation floated the largest ship Vorath had ever seen. It was 3 kilometers long, and its hull seemed to absorb the light around it. Vorath activated the emergency communication channel. "This is Sentinel Station 7. We are under attack. Requesting immediate reinforcement. Repeat, we are under attack by human forces." The response came quickly. "Sentinel 7, this is Velkari High Command. We are sending the defense fleet to your position. Hold your station." Hold his station, with a small border outpost against 400 warships. Vorath almost laughed. He turned to his weapons officer. "Power up all defensive systems. If we're going to die, we're going to die fighting." But the human ships did not attack the station. They simply stopped, holding their formation, waiting. Vorath watched them with confusion. What were they waiting for? 40 minutes later, the Velkari defense fleet arrived. 800 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel with weapons ready. They outnumbered the humans 2-1. Admiral Kethrin, the fleet commander, broadcast a message on all channels. "Human vessels, you are in violation of Velkari space. You have 2 choices: surrender immediately or be destroyed. This is your only warning." The response came from the massive ship at the center of the human formation, a woman's voice calm and cold. "This is Admiral Helena Vance of the Terran Defense Fleet. 3 years ago, you came to our world of New Harmony. You killed 10 million of our people. You broadcast their deaths for entertainment. Do you remember, Admiral Kethrin?" Kethrin laughed. "I remember. It was an excellent lesson. Obviously, it wasn't enough. You should have stayed hidden in your corner of space." "We have been preparing," Vance replied. "Preparing to return your lesson with interest. This is your one warning, Admiral. Order your ships to stand down, and we will allow them to withdraw. Continue to resist, and they will be destroyed." Every Velkari on every ship heard this and laughed. A human threatening a Velkari fleet? It was absurd. They had crushed species twice their size. They had ruled for 12,000 years. These upstart mammals thought they could threaten them? "Destroy them," Admiral Kethrin ordered casually. "Don't leave a single ship intact." The Velkari fleet moved forward with confidence. They had done this 1,000 times before. They knew every trick of space combat. They had the numbers, the experience, and the superior technology. Or so they thought. The human ships remained still as the Velkari approached. They did not move. They did not fire. They just waited. The Velkari took this as a sign of fear. They pushed forward faster. When the 2 fleets were within weapons range, everything changed. The human ships opened fire at the exact same moment. Every weapon on every ship fired together in perfect coordination. But these were not the weapons the Velkari expected. These were something new. Kinetic accelerators launched metal projectiles at incredible speeds. The projectiles punched through Velkari shields like they were made of paper. Explosions ripped through the first wave of Valkyrie ships. Laser batteries fired beams of light so powerful they cut warships in half. Electronic warfare systems scrambled Valkyrie communications and sensors. The Valkyrie fleet suddenly found itself blind and confused. On his ship, Admiral Kethrin watched in disbelief as his vessels exploded around him. "What is this? How is this possible? Their weapons can't do this," his sensor officer was shouting. "Sir, their technology, it's years ahead of what we expected, decades ahead. Their targeting systems are predicting our movements before we make them." "Fall back," Kethrin ordered. "All ships fall back." But it was too late. The human ships moved forward now, pressing their advantage. They worked together perfectly, each ship covering the others, each weapon finding its target. The Valkyrie tried to fight. They tried to retreat. They tried to surrender. The humans showed no mercy. The battle lasted 11 minutes. When it was over, 800 Valkyrie warships had been reduced to floating debris. Not a single human ship was lost. On Sentinel Station 7, Commander Vorath watched the destruction of his fleet with his mouth hanging open. He could not understand what he had witnessed. The Valkyrie had been invincible. They had ruled for 12,000 years. How could this happen? A message came through on his console. Admiral Vance's voice, still calm, still cold. "Sentinel Station 7, you will transmit a message to Valkyrie High Command. Tell them what you saw today. Tell them that we are coming. Tell them that there will be no negotiation. There will be no surrender. There will be only justice." Vorath's hands trembled as he prepared the transmission. What do you want?" "We want them to understand," Vance replied. "We want them to feel what we felt when we watched New Harmony burn. We want them to know that their 12,000 years of power mean nothing. We want them to see us coming and know that nothing can stop us." "You can't do this," Vorath whispered. "You can't just destroy everything." There was a long pause before Vance responded. "We learned from the best," she said. "We had excellent teachers." The transmission ended. The human fleet began to move again, deeper into Valkyrie space. They left Sentinel Station 7 intact. They wanted witnesses. They wanted the story to spread. And spread it did. Across the Valkyrie Dominion, news of the battle reached every world. Citizens who had celebrated the massacre of New Harmony now watched in horror as their invincible fleet was crushed. The High Council called emergency meetings. They gathered every ship they could find. They prepared their defenses. But deep inside, they felt something they had not felt in 12,000 years. Fear. On the bridge of the Remembrance, Admiral Vance looked at the star map showing the path to the Valkyrie homeworld. Her officers waited for orders. "How long until we reach their homeworld?" she asked. 3 weeks. "Admiral, if we proceed at current speed." Vance nodded slowly. "Let them have 3 weeks. Let them prepare. Let them hope. It will make no difference." She touched the hull of her ship, feeling the names carved into the metal. 10 million names, 10 million reasons. "Set course for Kethvoran," she ordered. "It's time to end this." The fleet moved forward into the darkness of space, carrying with them the weight of 10 million souls and a promise written in fire. Humanity had returned, and nothing would be the same again. The planet Kethvoran hung in space like a dark jewel. It was the heart of the Valkyrie Dominion. For 12,000 years, this world had ruled over 1,000 others. 18 billion Valkyrie lived on its surface. They had never known fear. They had never known defeat. They had never seen an enemy fleet in their skies. Until now, the people of Kethvoran looked up and saw the impossible. Human ships filled the space above their world, dark, angular vessels that blocked out the stars. At the center floated the massive dreadnought called Remembrance. Its hull seemed to drink the light. In the capital city, the High Council gathered in emergency session. The leaders of the Valkyrie Dominion sat around a great table, their faces showing emotions they had never felt before. Panic, terror, desperation. "How did this happen?" the High Speaker demanded. "Where are our fleets? Where are our defenses?" A military advisor stepped forward, his voice shaking. "Destroyed, High Speaker. Every fleet we sent against them has been destroyed. Their weapons, their technology, it is beyond anything we have seen. They have cut through our forces like we were nothing." "Then we surrender," another council member said quickly. We offer them whatever they want: territory, resources, reparations. We end this now before they destroy us all." The High Speaker activated the communication system. He had never thought he would speak these words. He had never thought anyone would force him to speak these words. "Human fleet, this is the High Speaker of the Velkari Dominion. We wish to discuss terms of surrender. Please respond." The response came quickly. Admiral Vance's face appeared on their screens. Her eyes were cold. Her voice was steady. "High Speaker, I wondered how long it would take you to call. Admiral Vance, we are prepared to offer complete surrender. We will give you whatever you want. Just name your terms." Vance did not respond immediately. She looked at the High Speaker for a long moment. Then she spoke. 3 years ago, did you offer surrender to New Harmony?" The High Speaker's face went pale. That was different. Did you offer them terms when they begged for mercy? Did you stop when mothers held their children and pleaded for their lives?" Silence. "I watched the broadcast," Vance continued. "I watched every minute of it. I saw your soldiers laugh as they killed. I heard your commander call it pest control. I remember his exact words. Do you?" The High Speaker tried to speak, but no words came out. "He said you were being merciful. He said you had only killed 10 million. He said we should remember your mercy." Vance's voice was ice. "We remember." A council member grabbed the communication device. "Those were the actions of rogue commanders. We have punished them. We can give you justice. Please, there are 18 billion people on this planet. Children, families. They had nothing to do with New Harmony." Admiral Vance was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was almost soft. "New Harmony had children too. New Harmony had families. 10 million people who just wanted to live in peace. 10 million people who never threatened you, never challenged you, never did anything except exist where you didn't want them to exist." She looked directly into the camera. "Do you know what I keep thinking about? There was a little girl, 7 years old. She hid in a hole in the ground while your soldiers killed her father. She stayed in that hole for 6 hours, listening to her people die. She survived. She grew up. She helped build the ships that are now above your world. On the planet's surface, in a small room aboard a support vessel orbiting Kethvorin, Sarah sat watching the broadcast. She was 13 years old now. Her hands, which had worked in factories for 3 years, were folded in her lap. Her eyes were fixed on the screen. That girl asked me a question once," Vance continued. "She asked me if we were ready. I told her we would be. And now we are." The High Speaker fell to his knees. "Please, I am begging you. Show mercy. Show that you are better than us. Show the galaxy that humans are not monsters." Admiral Vance leaned forward. "We were not monsters," she said. "We came to the stars with open hands. We wanted to explore. We wanted to learn. We wanted to make friends with every species we met. We believed in peace. We believed in cooperation. We believed that kindness was strength." Her voice hardened. "You taught us differently. You showed us that kindness is weakness. You showed us that mercy is invitation for more violence. You showed us that the only law in this galaxy is power. We did not want to learn these lessons, but you were excellent teachers." She stood up and addressed not just the High Council, but the entire galaxy. Every species, every planet, every ship received her broadcast. 3 years ago, the Velkari killed 10 million humans and called it a lesson. They wanted the galaxy to see what happens to species that challenge them. Today, the galaxy will see a different lesson. On Kethvaran, people began to run. They did not know where they were going. There was nowhere to go, but instinct drove them to flee, to hide, to do something, anything. "We are not cruel," Vance said. "We take no pleasure in what we are about to do. Every death today is a tragedy. Every life lost is a weight we will carry forever. But some things cannot be forgiven. Some debts must be paid. Some lessons must be taught." The High Speaker was screaming now, tears running down his gray face. "Please, please, we can change. We can be different. Give us a chance." Vance looked at him for a long moment. Something moved behind her eyes. Pain, perhaps, or sorrow, but it was buried beneath something harder. "Did you give New Harmony a chance?" she asked. She turned to her officers. Activate the Helios array. In space around the Valkyrie sun, satellites that had been quietly positioned during the fleet's advance came to life. They were small things, easy to miss among the debris and asteroids, but they contained technology that had taken humanity 3 years to develop. The satellites aligned. Energy began to flow between them. The Valkyrie sun, which had burned steady for billions of years, began to change. On Kethvaran, scientists detected the disturbance immediately. They ran calculations. They checked their instruments. They prayed that they were wrong. They were not wrong. The sun, a scientist whispered. They're destabilizing the sun. The high speaker received the report. He looked up at the sky, at the stars that were being blocked by human ships. What have we done? He whispered. What have we created? On the Remembrance, Admiral Vance watched the process begin. Her face showed no satisfaction, no joy, only a deep, terrible sadness. For new harmony, she said quietly, for 10 million souls who deserve better. Around her, officers repeated the words. For new harmony. The Valkyrie sun continued to change. The process had begun. It could not be stopped. Judgment had come to Kethvorn. The Valkyrie sun began to pulse. It started slowly, a gentle flicker that most people would not notice. But the scientists knew what was happening. The satellites were focusing solar energy in ways that nature never intended. The star that had given life to Kethvorin for billions of years was being turned into a weapon. On the planet's surface, people gathered in the streets. Some prayed to gods they had forgotten. Some held their families close. Some simply stood and watched the sky, waiting for the end. The high speaker sat alone in his chamber. The other council members had fled, trying to find ships, trying to escape. There was nowhere to escape to. The human fleet had surrounded the system. No ship would leave. He thought about the broadcast from New Harmony. He had watched it at the time and felt nothing but satisfaction. A pest problem solved. A lesson taught. He had never thought about those 10 million humans as people. They were just animals that needed to be controlled. Now sitting in the darkness, he finally understood. They had been people, families, children, dreams and hopes and fears, just like his own people. We were wrong, he whispered to the empty room. We were so wrong. But understanding came too late. The first pulse hit Kethvorn 6 hours after the Helios array activated. A wave of radiation swept across the planet. The shields that protected the cities failed almost instantly. People felt warmth, then heat, then fire in their blood. It was not a quick death. The scientists had designed it carefully. The radiation would not kill instantly. It would take time. Hours. Long enough for everyone to know what was happening. Long enough to feel fear. Long enough to understand. Admiral Vance watched from the Remembrance. Around her, officers sat at their stations in silence. No one spoke. No one celebrated. This was not a victory. This was an ending. The radiation levels are rising as projected, a science officer reported. His voice was hollow. Full sterilization will occur in approximately 11 hours. Vance nodded. Continue monitoring. The hours passed slowly. On Kethavaran, the screaming eventually stopped. The prayers stopped. The running stopped. One by one, 18 billion Valkyrie fell silent. The radiation touched every corner of the planet. It reached into the deepest shelters. It found every hiding place. The other worlds of the Valkyrie Dominion watched in horror as their capital died. They saw the sun pulse again and again, each wave carrying more death. They understood that if the humans wanted, they could do the same to any world. When it was over, Admiral Vance broadcast one final message to the galaxy. Her face was tired. Her eyes carried a weight that would never leave them. She spoke not as a conqueror, but as someone who had done a terrible thing and knew it was necessary. The Valkyrie Dominion is no more, she said. Their homeworld is dead. Their sun will pulse for centuries, a reminder of what happened here. This is not a day for celebration. This is a day for mourning. She paused, gathering her thoughts. Humanity did not want this. When we first reached the stars, we dreamed of friendship. We dreamed of a galaxy where different species could live together in peace. We extended our hand to everyone we met. We shared our knowledge freely. We asked for nothing except friendship. Her voice grew harder. The Velkari answered our friendship with genocide. They murdered 10 million of our people and called it a lesson. They wanted us to learn our place. They wanted us to be afraid. She leaned forward. We learned a different lesson. We learned that some species see kindness as weakness. We learned that some threats cannot be negotiated with. We learned that sometimes the only way to protect the innocent is to become something terrible. She stood up, facing the camera directly. Let this serve as instruction to every civilization that watches. Humanity does not want war. We do not want conquest. We do not want to rule over others. We want only to live in peace and to protect our people. But if you threaten what we love, if you harm what we cherish, if you think you can teach us lessons through blood and terror, her voice dropped to almost a whisper, but it carried across the stars. Remember Kethvorin. Remember what happened to the Velkari. Remember that humanity will go to any length, pay any price, become anything necessary to protect our own, and know that we will never forget. We will never forgive. We will never allow this to happen again. The transmission ended. In the years that followed, the galaxy changed. Species that had thought about attacking human colonies quietly abandoned those plans. Empires that had bullied smaller civilizations found themselves more careful. The name Velkari became a whisper, a warning, a ghost story told to children. But humanity did not become the monsters that others feared. They built hospitals on war-torn worlds. They sent aid to planets suffering from natural disasters. They mediated disputes between ancient enemies. They shared technology with any species that asked. They became known as fierce protectors and generous friends. Admiral Helena Vance retired from the fleet. She spent her remaining years teaching young officers at the academy on Luna. She never spoke about Kethvorin publicly. When students asked her about it, she would be quiet for a long time before answering. It was necessary, she would say, but necessary is not the same as good. Carry that weight with you always. Never forget what we are capable of. Never forget why we must never do it again. Sarah grew up to become a diplomat. The girl who had hidden in a hole while her father died became one of humanity's most respected voices for peace. She worked her entire life to prevent another new harmony from ever happening. She kept a small picture on her desk, a child's drawing of a family standing under a yellow sun. It was the last drawing she had made before the Velkari came. Her mother had put it on the wall of their kitchen, and somehow, impossibly, it had survived the destruction. When people asked about it, she would smile sadly. It reminds me why we fight, she would say, and why we must never stop working for peace. Violence begets violence. Hatred begets hatred. The only way to break the cycle is through patience and understanding and hope. She would touch the drawing gently. But it also reminds me that some things are worth protecting. Some things are worth fighting for. And if anyone threatens those things, we will do whatever is necessary to keep them safe. The galaxy learned to respect humanity, not because humans were the strongest or the most advanced. They were not. Many species were older and more powerful, but no one wanted to be the next Velkari. No one wanted to find out what humanity would do if pushed too far. And in every council chamber, every throne room, every war planning session across known space, there hung an unspoken truth. There had once been a species that ruled for 12,000 years. They had been mighty and cruel and proud. Now their worlds were tombs, their sun a memorial, their name a warning whispered in the dark. Do not wake the sleeping giant. Do not harm what they love, because humanity remembers, and humanity responds.